What's up, everyone? Jeremy Gerard from Mythic Customs here with one of my short customizing tutorial videos. Today's video, we're going to talk about one of my personal projects, my Akupara turtles. This is a project that I'm super excited to share with everybody. And the reality is, if you're new to customizing, these are some great parts to start with because they're very, very easy to paint them up and make them look really cool. But if you've been customizing for a while, I think you're going to love these parts as well because there's some great details, especially in the weapons they come with, that you're just going to have a wonderful time using those details to really make them look great. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to talk you through the series, a little bit about the characters themselves that I created here, the series' origins and how it came to life. And then I'm going to give you some tips on how I paint them, show you some pictures, show you some of the materials I used and some of the process I use to paint them up. So if you are new, you'll know exactly how to do it. So let's get started by looking at exactly the parts that we're talking about, right? So let me share this here. These are the Akupara turtles. So when I say that word Akupara, that is what I refer to as the name of this race that I created. I actually helped design these characters, these parts, just over a year ago at this point. I'm working with my friend Walter DeMarco of Mass Customs. So I kind of created them, came up with the ideas for what these characters were going to look like, what weapons they're going to wield, and then Walter did all of the 3D sculpting. The pieces were then printed by Wolf King Customs, and they were also sold by Wolf King Customs. And then I painted up everything you see here. Now, obviously, if you follow my channel, you know that Mythic Legions are really what I work. That's the kind of medium I work in for customizing. So all of these are on Mythic Legions bodies. The turtle in the middle, the snapper turtle, that is the main villain of this storyline. That's Arshelon the Terror, and he's on a Gonk's body. Now, I didn't paint that body at all. It was just a standard Gonk's body. All I actually painted was his neck to match the head. But we'll talk about the head and the weapon shortly. On either end of this picture, we have two of Arshelon's kind of henchmen, two of his soldiers, I guess, that he uses. Those both use cavern dwarf bodies. All I did on them was swap out the loin piece and then add the new pieces. And then in the middle, on the opposite side of Arshelon, is the hero of the story. That is the tortoise Genbu the Wise. He's built actually on a King Noglin body, so a 2.0 Goblin style body. All of these parts actually do look really good on either the 2.0, Goblin size frames, or on those 1.0 dwarf bodies, which you see the others on. I think they work great on both of them. Now, the set itself comes with two different heads. Again, there's that tortoise head on Genbu, and there's also the snapping turtle head that you see on the bad guy Arshelon. Both of those minions that have the helmets on, they actually have the same snapping turtle head as Arshelon the Terror. Those helmets were made to go right on top of that head to fit it specifically. So you could have that one head, but have a couple different looks to create some unique characters. All of these characters also have a pair of turtle feet that they use. It's all the same pair of feet for all of them. And then there are four distinct weapons. You can see that the two minions, one of them on the left's got like a club. The one all the way to the right has that gigantic spear. Arshelon has that really wicked looking hook. And then you can't really see it in this photo, but Genbu actually has a sword. You can see it poking out from the back of his shell because he's wearing it on his back. I'll show a better photo of that shortly when we get to it. Fun little side note, I actually designed all of those weapons kind of as a subtle nod to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I didn't want to go, specifically with ninja weapons because this race, this Akupara, I wanted all the weapons to be very, very influenced by Polynesian weapons. So they're wood and stone. They've got, the teeth of like aquatic predators that are kind of like tied on to the, the weapon itself with like some cord or whatever. So doing, steel forged ninja style weapons wouldn't make makes sense for this category here, this group. But I still wanted those TMNT weapons to influence what I chose here. So I did do a sword for Genbu. That spear is a nod to Donatello's staff. The club was meant to be Michelangelo's nunchucks. And while I didn't want to do the sai that Raphael uses, he got to have that incredibly wicked looking hook. Raphael was always my favorite turtle, so I gave that nod the coolest of these weapons. So those are the characters. That's what we're going to look at here. And the reality is painting all of these starts with a black base coat. So this is the spray paint that I use. This is Krylon Flat Black. I use this for probably 90% of my customs. I don't use primer. That's a question I get a lot. Do you use primer? And I don't use primer. The few times I've ever used primer, I found it to be tacky and just, I didn't like the way that it worked for me personally. If I'm painting an existing Mythic Legions part, I usually just paint right on top of the factory paints. The only time I base it out in a color is if I'm painting a bunch of disparate parts. I want them all to be the same color eventually. Well, because sometimes the base color, shines through, especially if you're doing dry brushing or something, starting with the same base color is going to be important to consistency. So obviously this is what I use. Also, when I'm painting 3D printed custom parts, like we're doing here with these Akupara turtles, those come as just flat resin. I got a piece of them right here. This is that snapping turtle head. You can see it's just unpainted, kind of a gray resin. Resin comes in a variety of different colors. This one happens to be in this almost like whitish type gray. Basing it out in this black spray paint, I find helps. And again, that's just Krylon Color Master Cover Max Black Flat. You can get it at a variety of different places. I order it online. I've got it from Amazon. I've got it from Michael's Crafts. I like that one. It works really well for me. So once I've got that base coat down, the next thing I'm going to do is some dry brushing. And the great thing about these turtle type characters is you don't need a specific color. Spend some time and look up photos of turtles, snapping turtles or tortoises or whatever kind of turtle you're going to paint. There's a variety of different colors, and they're not one flat color. They've got, different kinds of shades and stuff on them. So you can definitely have some fun with that. Let's look at some pictures of the snapping turtle here and the turtle feet. So there you go. You can see on the left, that's a close-up photo of Arshalon the Terror, that snapping turtle head. And then on the right, you can see that turtle foot. So once I have these based out in black, what I'm going to do is a little bit of dry brushing. And if you don't know what dry brushing is, you can certainly check back on some of my previous videos. I actually do have one specifically about dry brushing, and I talk about it all the time. I'll talk a little bit in a moment about what dry brushing is, but really what I'm doing here is I'm dry brushing on some green, both to that head and to that foot area. You can see the foot is two separate, I should not two separate pieces, but it's two separate kind of materials, I guess, where you've got the actual foot itself, that kind of scaly type foot. Then you've got that rim, that collar rim that would be metal. So what I always do with that metal is I try to paint it to match whatever figure I'm going to put it on. In this case, I put it on a Gonk's body. Gonk's has got kind of like a rusty armor. So over that that black base coat, I'm going to paint a little bit of brown, a little bit of orange to get that dirty, rusty look. Again, for the actual foot itself and for the head, I'm just painting with some green and I'm doing some dry brushing. Any color you want. This is one I like here. This is refractive green from Vallejo. It's number 70.890. And again, refractive green. Probably not going to zoom in there. What you do with dry brushing is it's very simple. You've got your paint tray, and you can see my paint tray is very, very messy, sign of a lot of projects. What I'll do is I'll put just a little bit of paint in there. You take your paintbrush, and the paintbrushes that I love to use, these are from Testers. So these really fat brushes I find work great for dry brushing. I've got a video about basic painting tips for customizing, and I talk about these brushes, but they're worth mentioning here. These are Testers. They come in a pack where it's a 3-pack. There's a size 10, a size 8, and a size 2. So this is a size 8. So this is kind of the mid-range one in the pack. But what I do here is when I have my paint in my tray, you just dip this in a little bit, get a paper towel, and what you'll do is once you have paint on that, you're going to literally wipe the paint off on that paper towel. So you don't need a ton of paint because you're going to wipe most of it off. You don't want to waste it. So you don't have to dip it in there and rub it all around and get this thing coated. Just give it a little bit on the tip and then rub it off right here. The phrase I always like to use is you just want the hint of paint, just almost like the thought of paint on that brush. Once you have that, you're going to take that piece and you're going to lightly start rubbing it over, okay? There's so little paint that the paint is going to go on. It's going to be very, very light, very, very subtle. That's good. Use that. If you have a really wet paintbrush and you glob it on, it just fills in all the crevices. It just goes on thick. It goes on quick. By dry brushing, by putting it on very, very slowly and very, very measured, you can build that paint up a little bit. And what happens is when you look at a piece like this, this sculpture has got so many wonderful textural details in the sculpture itself. Walter did an absolutely fabulous job capturing all of these different details. What happens with dry brushing is there's so little paint that it's only going to get the raised areas of the sculpture, the exposed parts. So like the bumps and stuff on the head, that's all going to get paint. But a lot of the crevices, they're not going to get paint. So you end up with this really great looking two-tone type color where you can see that black base coat, but then you have the green on top of it. You can even add after, mix in another color with that green to get a slightly different shade. If you want to do a little bit of dry brushing on that, maybe concentrate just on the top of the head. With that, you can get some really, really interesting colors just by dry brushing. And because you're going slow and very deliberate, you're building that up, okay? Same thing with the feet. You do that with the front. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the eyes. So let me look at that. Let me bring that photo back up again so we can see it. Once I've got the actual base color I want done there, I'm going to put the eyes up, paint the eyes on. In this particular case, I like the eyes on these to be a little bit glossy. You can also do the same thing for the nails on the turtle as well. This particular picture here, I didn't paint the nails, but lately I've been doing that more often. Really nice fine brush. Just get those eyeballs. Just be very, very deliberate. You just want to put a little bit of paint and just dab it on the eyes. Kind of let the paint fill in that sculptural piece to get that eye. Suggestion, either use a glossy paint. So this one here, this is a Craftsmart black gloss paint. This works really, really cool because it makes that eye a little glossy. If you don't have glossy paint, no problem. Something else I love to do, and I did a video about this as well, is if you paint it with a flat black, you can use something like this. This is by Model Masters. This is a gloss clear. So you put this on top of another color paint, and it gives it a glossy effect. I use this all the time on my customs. I use it for eyes. I use it for like teeth. Like when I paint like the werewolves that are sold by Wolf King Customs in my Legion shop, when I want those teeth to have like kind of a glossy, nasty look, this is what I use. Again, I've got a video specific about this. If you are going to use it, let the paint dry that you're putting on top of for a minimum of 24 hours. Then very, very lightly put this on where you want to be glossy. So in this case, we're talking about those eyes. You could also do the nails too. No problem. The last thing I love to do with these turtle heads is actually do a tiny little bit of dry brushing with a metallic color, okay? So a nice metallic color. In this case here, I've got a Vallejo metallic gold. A lot of times I actually use the cheap craft store brands, Craft Smart, Deco Art, things like that. I love their metallics because you're just dry brushing them on, no problem. Putting that in the paint tray, doing that exact same process, dipping the brush in, brushing it off on that paper towel, and then just hitting the top of that head with just a little bit of that gold. Like you can see here, it's not going to show up really, but a little bit of gold on the top there. It just adds a little bit of sheen. And look at the sculptural details before you start doing. You don't just want to blast everything with that gold. Just like kind of the ridges on the top of the head, maybe a little bit on the front of the beak-like nose. That little bit of gold, it gives it almost like a sheen, almost like they're in the water and they're kind of just glistening in the sun. Love, love, love doing that. I think that's very, very effective. So that's how I would paint these heads. Black base coat, little bit of dry brush and green. You can even mix in some different colors there if you want. A little bit of yellowish maybe, slightly different color green to get the look you want. Dry brush that on, paint the eyes with that, black, maybe some gloss on top of that or a black gloss to start with. And then a tiny, very, very subtle little bit of gold metallic to really bring out some highlights. The next one I want to show you is the tortoise, actually. So the tortoise Genbu, I wanted him to look a little bit different. So instead of a green, I went with more of a yellow on that one here. Love the way that looks. And again, it's the same process. The only difference is I substituted a yellowish type color instead of that refractive green. I actually used this color here. This is a yellow ochre from Vallejo as well. This is 70913. Really, really similar. If I show the two heads here, you can see the green from Archelon and the yellow from Genbu. They make a nice contrast. There's no wrong colors for this. Again, look at actual photos of turtles and tortoises and decide what color you want to do. But the process is the same. Base coat of black, whatever that, actual color I want to achieve is, very, very slowly dry brushed on, paint the eyes, hit it with a little bit of gold metallic dry brushing. That gold metallic dry brushing, that is the final step. And before you do it, I'm going to tell you, before you hit it with that gold, it's going to look good. Like you're going to be like, this looks really cool. Do I really need to do that? I suggest you do it. Very, very subtle though. Like just dip that brush in and dry it off incredibly. Like really you want, again, just the hint of that metallic paint on there. And then just hit a little bit of the top ridge of the head with that gold. And once you step back and you look at that little sheen that adds, it is so subtle, but it is transformative. You will absolutely love it. I talked about the feet, by the way. You can do the same thing to the feet. You can totally paint the tops of the feet with that little bit of gold as well. Now, I did show those helmets. So let's look at those helmets really quick. Ultimately, the helmets, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to paint the heads the same way. These are the snapping turtle heads. Then you just need to paint the actual helmets themselves. So in this particular case, I tried to paint them to match the cavern dwarf armor. So I used some coppery type colors here. These also look wonderful if you base them out in black and you paint them with, like some tin type color or some silvers, dry brush that on. A lot of sculptural details, especially the one on the right that has all like the spikes on top. It just looks great. There's so many sculptural details there that dry brushing will really bring out. So let me show you how that works. This is the snapping turtle head. This is one of the helmets. And it's actually, this particular test one I got was printed in a blackish type resin. I don't know if they're all going to come in that. Even with that blackish base color, I'm still going to base it out in a color in that black just because I like to start there. But it literally fits right on top, just right on top of that head. So all you got to do is once this is painted, and I can even show you with I'll show you with Archelon. So I've got Archelon the Terra here, and all I have to do is just pop that helmet right on, and it looks great. Now, one thing I will caution you, these helmets, they're not super tight. The other helmet is a little bit tighter. The one on the left here is a little bit tighter. But either one of these, when you put it on, you don't want to ruin that paint job underneath it. So I would suggest you seal it. Question I get from a lot of people is what I use for sealer. This is what I use here. This is Testers. It's a spray lacquer. This is Clear Coat. This I actually think is discontinued, this particular one. It's become harder and harder to find, but there are others out there that I'm frankly testing. So I don't have a recommendation for you yet. This is the one, if you can find it, that I definitely recommend. You want the Clear Coat, the matte version. I think it's actually called like flat coat, a dull coat it's called. Dulcote, dull coat. There's a glossy version as well that I would avoid, because if you use the gloss version, it's going to make everything shine. I want those eyes to shine like I talked about, but I don't want the whole thing to be shiny. So dull coat, Testers, Clear Coat. Dull coat is what I suggest to seal it. I like to seal all my figures. Anything that I sell through like Wolf King or Legion Shop, those are all sealed with this specific spray. If you're going to use this helmet on that head, I would suggest you seal it up just to make sure there's no paint rub. Okay. That's how you do those two helmets. Really easy. I just went with a flat color here. That one on the right's got so many little details, so many spikes and rivets. You could go in and you could add some more painting detail to that if you want. But I think that this is really easy. These two are, really solid colors. So even though I did that base coat here, that black base coat, these I didn't really do a lot of dry brushing on. I actually put that bronzish color on a lot thicker because I wanted full coverage. I'm going to show you one in a few minutes that's actually got a little bit more dry brushing where you can see some more of those sculptural details. But this is an instance here where you can just hit those out in a color if you want it to match whatever armor you are going to be pairing it with. Let's talk weapons. The weapons for these are incredibly fun to paint. They're super detailed. And it's kind of a catch-22 there. Like I said at the start, if you're a seasoned customizer, you're going to love some of these sculptural details. There's so much to work with. If you're new, don't get intimidated, because the way that they are sculpted, all of those details are so nice and raised that as long as you're patient and you've got a fine brush, you can totally rock these things, okay? Let's look at one of my favorites first, which is the huge spear weapon. So look at how huge that thing is. Now, when you buy this actually comes as a two-part piece. There's the top part, the actual, I don't know, blade, I guess if you would call it, the tarper, is a 3D printed piece. That was what was sculpted by Walter DeMarco and printed by Wolf King. The actual shaft, the pole that he's holding, that's just a plastic rod that Wolf King Customs, when they sell this, they include that as well. I painted both of them, and this is meant to be kind of like, a large piece of wood that's got some like sharp teeth or whatever that are lashed to it. So the photo on the left, you can see that I've dry brushed, again, like all of these, black base coat. I dry brushed some different browns, some dark browns, some light browns onto that first. That's the first thing that I do. That really covers everything. Then I just went in with a slightly lighter color, and you could do a lighter brown, you could do a darker brown, you could do red, whatever you want that chord color to be, and I just meticulously paint all of those chords. It's a little slow going, but take your time and you will nail it. Last thing, I paint all of those different kind of teeth. I paint the ribbon that's around the bottom, and then I painted the leaves that are at the base. I also did a little bit of dry brushing on the shaft itself because it comes black, and I wanted it to have a little bit of color. But that would look nice. So let me show you here. This is actually one of the crazy guys holding it. Again, it's just a separate piece, and this is just a plastic pole. It's just right on there. I haven't glued it yet. I'll probably glue it on there eventually. It comes unpainted and it looks like this. So it's just that one color, again, black base coat, hit it with some brown dry brushing. What's going to happen with the brown dry brushing is it's twofold. Not only are you going to get all of these wood sculptural details, but all of those actually, all of those laces, that cord, that's all raised. So when you start hitting that with the dry brushing, all of that's going to get the paint too. And that's really, the details are really going to come out. It's going to look great. I went in and again added a little bit more paint to it, but even that, take it slow. You may find that you're like, I really like the way this looks. As far as the teeth, I just get kind of like an ivory type color, just hit all of those with that ivory, nice fine paintbrush, and then a little subtle bit of dry brushing on top of that as well, kind of like a light brown to give it a little bit of a look like it's been weathered. There are 3 other weapons that are available in this series as well. You saw it, the hook, the club, and the sword. So let's look at those. The sword all the way to the left that you're seeing here, again, very, very similar to what we just saw for that spear. Dry brush it brown, paint those teeth, paint those cords that are holding on the teeth, and you're good to go. You don't want to cover it. By doing that dry brushing, you get that wood-like texture. You allow the sculptural details to really start to breathe. That hook in the middle, that's the one that's not meant to be wood. That's meant to be more like stone. Same exact process, just instead of using browns, I'm using grays to get that stone-like texture. And when I say texture, the texture is already in the sculpture. So when you're dry brushing on top of it, all you're really doing is bringing those sculptural details out. It will look like stone. Painting all of those teeth, exact same process. The process of all the teeth here is exactly the same. And in this one, you can see how it's not just a flat color. I didn't just use that ivory type color to paint all of them. After the ivory color was there, after it dried, going in and dry brushing very subtly a little bit of another color, a brownish, a reddish, you get those, that kind of variation of color that makes it look more natural. Last thing I did here was paint those laces. Also did a little dry brushing on the handle itself to get that to look like maybe some leather wrapped around that handle. I talked earlier about using the sealer on those heads so the helmets won't mess up the paint. Same thing on the weapons. Anytime you put these weapons inside of hands, you're going to risk rubbing that paint. Now, the great thing about these particular weapons is because they're meant to be kind of organic anyway, a little bit of a paint rub might not totally kill the look. I definitely wouldn't suggest putting them in and taking them out of the hands all the time. But if you do use that sealer, that will help at least protect some of that paint. Last one here is that club. Club is super easy to do. Black base coat, dry brush on. I dry brushed on some browns because it's meant to be kind of like a wooden type club. And then I just did a lighter brown around the handle. It's a little tough to see there. So let me actually bring it up. This is the club. You can see there's a slightly little bit of different color brown, lighter brown around the handle there where he holds. Those weapons are super easy to paint, but an absolute joy. If you are new, you are going to love how they look. You're going to love what you accomplished. You're going to have that sense of accomplishment once you finish it up. This video is getting a little long. Bear with me. There's a lot of parts in this series to paint. I'm going to show you one more example. So I've painted all of these figures to look, like turtle. I said use the turtle-like colors. But you can also use these and totally go fantasy with it. Totally go, I guess more fantasy than giant turtle characters, right? So one that I did is this one, which I call my Demon Fire Akupara. This was painted to match the Hellfire Goblin figure. And you can see I do use the head. I painted all of the head colors on this, the reds and the blues, to match the Hellfire Demon. Let me show you a better photo of this character here so you can see exactly what I'm referring to. So there we go. You can see all the way to the left. That's the Hellfire or a Demon Fire Akupara. You can see that middle one. I've kind of positioned his head down, so you can see some of those paint details I added. And these were just based on that Hellfire Goblin. I took that Hellfire Goblin and I used it as a guide. Obviously, the paint pattern is not matching, but it is similar. It's the same spirit as that Hellfire Goblin. And the body itself is really just a Hellfire Goblin. All I did was change the loin piece, and I'm actually using the weapons that were part of the early bird giveaway for those people that pre-ordered the Aether Wave from Store Horseman in the first 24 hours. I think they were great on this figure. All the way to the right, you can see that helmet. Again, I love this helmet. It fits right on top of that head. This is an example of what it can look like when you don't just do a solid flat color, but you do some dry brushing. Black base coat here. I then dry brushed on some brown and a little bit of that kind of like chrome type color. And I'm trying to match the actual armor of Hellfire Goblin here. So it's got some browns there that I actually did some tin. So there is a Craft Smart tin color that I really, really like. That is what I dry brushed around the front and around really kind of the edges of it to really bring out those details and to get that multicolored look. So it looks like this thing has seen some significant wear. And it looks great on the Hellfire Goblin body. And as I said, it creates a really cool fantasy-like Akupara character, turtle character, if you want something that's a little more off the wall and not so straightforward as I guess, this snapping turtle would be. Very, very cool. So that's my tutorial. Again, I didn't take you through it and paint all of these on camera, but dry brushing is a very, very simple process to do. I've done other videos about it, and 99% of painting these is dry brushing, or maybe a little less, maybe 90% because of the detail work on the weapons. If you're watching this video, by the way, these parts, and you're saying, this looks great, where do I get these parts? I mentioned it at the start. These were sold by wolfkingcustoms.com. So I'm recording this, and I'm planning to post this at a point when they actually are available for sale from wolfkingcustoms.com. If you watch this weeks from now, months from now, whatever, you may go to that website and they may not be available. Wolf King they're not open 24/7. They do like week-long sales every other month or so. So if you miss it and you want them, my suggestion is Wolf King brings back products all the time. So if they are not available at the point that you are ready to buy, my suggestion is sign up for their newsletter if you haven't done so already, so you'll be notified when new things go live. Number two, actually use their contact form and reach out to Wolf King Customs to let them know that you would like a shot at the Akupara turtle pieces. When they hear from fans and the fans tell them what pieces they would like them to bring back, that actually helps them decide what pieces to add to some of the new sales. Every sale has lots of new parts, but they also bring back some old favorites. So if you want your Akupara turtles and you're watching this video and they're not currently for sale, let Len from Wolf King Customs know so he will know to add them to the next sale. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy videos like this, let me know in the comments. Certainly give the video a like, and if you're not subscribed to the channel already, consider doing so you'll be notified when new videos like this go live. If you've picked up your Akupara parts and you're thinking of painting them, be sure to tag me in them, because as I always say, I can't wait to see what you make.